people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Baumgardner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Further confirmation that we may be inching closer towards an Alicia Baumgardner versus Christina Linardattu rematch that's being eyed for July 15th in Detroit.
You know, Mayer versus Lenardattu was a good fight, but it didn't have the appeal that this rematch would, because this rematch, obviously, it has backstory.
Alicia Baumgartner's homecoming will double as a revenge tour. BoxingScene.com has learned that plans are in place for Baumgartner to defend her undisputed junior lightweight championship versus Christina Lenardattu, the only fighter to hang a loss on her otherwise pristine record. The rematch is not yet finalized, but remains the leading plan to headline a July 15th DAZN show in Detroit, Michigan.
Michigan.
As previously reported by Boxing Scene and other outlets, a discussed co-feature would pair Brooklyn's unbeaten rising contender, Richardson Richens, a 2016 Olympian for Haiti, versus Montana Love in a junior welterweight contest.
From the moment the BBBOC refused to license Christina Linardattu to box Michaela Mayer in the UK, I had hoped that this fight would materialize.
It's only right. The fight fell apart just prior to the weigh-in when the British Boxing Board of Control would not approve Linardattu, a 35-year-old former two-time WBO 140-pound titleist from Athens, Greece, for a license due to a permanent lens in her eye.
And it's confusing, to say the least, because she had that same lens in that same eye when she boxed Katie Taylor in that same United Kingdom with a license.
With a license from the BBBOC. Now, it's possible that since that Katie Taylor fight, perhaps that lens might have incurred some damage, but you know, she's actually fought since the Katie Taylor fight more than once.
It's been some time since that Katie Taylor fight.
Since then, she's become a two-time WBO champion. She ended up having to relinquish the title.
She was with child.
Gave birth, but she has since returned to action. She's had a fight in the last 12 months, so the BBBOC's decision to not license her seemed peculiar.
Because she fought in the UK before.
Against Katie Taylor, who moved up for their November 2019 title fight in Manchester, but have since revised their medical policy, which was the cause for her being turned away for this fight.
So does that mean she can never box on UK soil again?
Based on that revised policy, and is that going to be an issue moving forward should she try to obtain a license here in the United States, here in America, where this proposed Baumgartner rematch would take place?
The first fight between Alicia and Christina took place in Louisville, Kentucky, way back when in 2018.
Now, a lot has happened since then. Alicia Baumgartner has since rebounded off that loss to Christina some years ago. Some years later, she is an improved fighter, an undisputed champion, more maturated, more seasoned.
And eager, I think, to show Christina everything she's learned. A Fremont, Ohio native
who lives and trains in the greater Detroit area, has won 8 in a row since a heartbreaking split decision defeat to Linardattu in their 2018 non-title fight in Louisville, Kentucky. Baumgartner was able to revamp her entire team, including her signing with Marshall Kaufman's King Promotions. She has since emerged as one of the top pound-for-pound fighters and the fully unified 130-pound queen.
She's peaking.
She's in her prime now. Opposite the ring, Christina Lenardattu, Alicia has to try to land with more authority than she did the last time out. She's got to put a dent in Christina, try to get her to simmer down.
Christina, who last fought in a 6-rounder last July after having given birth. Her pregnancy resulted in an unceremonious end to her second WBO junior welterweight title reign, having regained the belt in February of 2020 with a win over Priska Vikot.
Christina Lenardattu is a pressure fighter. That's why she was able to effectively fluster Alicia Baumgardner the first time out, push her around.
Alicia is a pure boxer. For the most part, that's what she is. For the most part.
She will have to make a few adjustments to beat Christina in a rematch. She's going to have to let her hands go a little more.
Pure boxer is typically a long-distance, long-range fighter that likes to fight from a safe distance.
Opposite the ring, a pressure fighter, characteristically aggressive base style. Surely you can see how that might result in that pure boxer getting outworked, getting outmuscled, and out-hustled. Thus, it's up to Alicia to tweak some things and make that adjustment to where she's not letting Christina lead the dance and letting Christina outwork her.
Pure boxers are characteristically economic. It's only really 1 or 2 punches at a time with them.
They don't give you very many opportunities to counter them by being economic, by being defensively responsible. But to beat a pressure fighter, to beat Christina, she's going to have to open up a little more. She can't let Christina lead the dance like she did the last time.
She's got to be less pure boxer, more boxer puncher. The caveat is throwing more
takes more energy. There's no such thing as a free lunch. The trade-off with being a busier puncher in the round is the expenditure of more energy.
Everything costs.
But that's the adjustment that Alicia has to make to beat Christina in the second fight where she didn't in the first.
Rematches are often won by the fighter that can make the most adjustments, and it just so happens that pressure fighters like Christina, they don't change much in between fights.
Not much changes about their approach, whereas Alicia is a bit more adaptable, malleable.
She can tweak a few things.
Though she does have to pace herself. Many might recall in the Mekhaled fight, Alicia kind of burned out after a very strong round.
Took her a bit to get some wind back in her lungs.
Beating Christina, even here today, all these years after their first fight, is easier said than done, but most things are.
That's still the assignment.
What she's got to do, and we'll see if she can in July. In other news, fellow content creator here on YouTube, Kelly X, posted the viewing figures for last weekend's shows. The Top Rank show, the Showtime show, Rolly Romero versus Ismael Barroso, and Yanni Beck versus Butler TV ratings from Saturday. To put in proper perspective, Rolly did significantly better than his Showtime counterparts, but still way behind what ESPN fighters are doing as far as ratings.
To which Leonard Ellerbe responded, "Please post those platforms' numbers next week to compare and show your followers how smart you are, to put things in proper perspective. It's always cool to give your opinion on fighters and networks. It's yours. Nobody really cares. But speaking on shit you know nothing about, you really look stupid."
And you look really insecure, Leonard. Snapping at boxing fans. You're essentially snapping at the consumer, the customer.
Is that supposed to be good for business?
There are more mature ways to have a conversation than what we see here from Leonard Ellerbe. Moreover, could it be that Leonard's insecure because he knows duplicating the success of Davis versus Garcia is easier said than done?
Is he snapping because he's insecure?
Kelly X reciprocated by saying, "We know, Leonard. Get a better platform, you quote-unquote dummy." To which Leonard responded, "You mean the platform that just did 1.2 million and holds every record in the sport? That platform? Since you're comparing platforms' counterparts, let's compare platform numbers after this weekend with the counterparts to put things in perspective. Hit me back next week when we compare numbers."
So what records is he referring to?
Mayweather's records. Mayweather's numbers. Floyd Mayweather, who is retired and doesn't even stage his exhibition matches on the Showtime platform anymore, that Leonard Ellerbe had to conjure up the ghost of Floyd Mayweather's boxing career that is now over.
Desperate.
Whatever records Floyd Mayweather set or Floyd Mayweather held are irrelevant to the numbers that you're putting up here today with your shows, with your fighter, Rolly Romero, who was in action this past weekend, and that was the topic of discussion. Not the numbers from a Mayweather fight or the numbers from another fight. We're talking about the numbers for that fight.
Because that night, it had to go head-to-head with another show on another platform in ESPN.
And you guys got beat. You guys got beat by a wide margin. Leonard continued, "You dummy. You are completely clueless. ESPN is available in a minimum of 3 times as many homes as Showtime, but a genius like you can't comprehend something like that."
What's the comprehend?
It all means the same thing. They cater to a bigger audience than you do, a bigger audience than Showtime. By telling us that ESPN's reach is far greater than Showtime, you're just proving our point.
They beat you, and that's why.
You stage a boxing match. the same night as them, going head-to-head with them. You're in competition. You're competing for the same eyeballs, whether you're a premium cable network or not. Not that it matters.
Because it doesn't. You're still in competition, and they are your competitor.
There's no handicap when two separate platforms are staging boxing matches the same night at the same time, and one gets significantly more views than the other. It all means the same thing. More people were watching Yanni Beck versus Butler than Romero versus Barroso. Even worse, that the people that did watch Romero versus Barroso saw that highway robbery.
So you robbed that old man.
This is your fighter.
Yours.
This is the guy you have to try to market as a bona fide champion now.
Good luck with that.
The illusion of Rolly Romero's celebrity is tenuous, to say the least, when a guy like Yanni Beck is putting up better numbers than he is, and you say that, well, ESPN is a bigger platform than Showtime.
So what?
I thought that Rolly Romero was a star. When you're a star, you're a star. You don't have to make excuses.
Why would you?
Leonard brings up the 1.2 or the 1.4 million pay-per-views sold by Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia as if Showtime is...
You think they're solely responsible? Okay, Leonard. Let's see you do it again then.
Okay.
Let's see you do those numbers without a Ryan Garcia.
Have at him, cowboy.
Without the DAZN fighter.
If you could, you would. That was Gervonta Davis's 6th pay-per-view appearance. In the 5 pay-per-views prior to that one, he never came close to putting up numbers like that. But if you're gonna give Showtime all the credit...
Let's see you do it again.
Kinda like Leonard tried to give Showtime all the credit for the Canelo versus Plant numbers.
Remember that?
I remember that, and I remember Leonard was singing the platform's praises when news broke that Canelo versus Plant brought in just north of 800,000 pay-per-view buys. The only reason it did that was because of Canelo. Let Leonard tell it, and it was because of Showtime.
What, was it because of Canelo?
He wasn't the driving force for the buy rate. He and he alone. It was because of Showtime. Then how come Caleb Plant's latest pay-per-view didn't bring in those same numbers?
The one with David Benavidez.
How come Benavidez versus Plant, that happened on the Showtime platform, the same as Canelo versus Plant, how come Benavidez versus Plant didn't bring in 800,000 buys, Leonard?
Since you're giving Showtime all the credit.
The way Leonard formulates his arguments and structures them is just a reflection of what the Haymanites do. What Gervonta Davis's core supporters, these guys and gals, who like to argue in bad faith.
Patented brand of sophistry.
Boxing insider Rick Glacier tweeted, the peak of 233,000 viewers for last Saturday's Showtime boxing show featuring Romero versus Barroso won't make Paramount Global executives want to keep boxing programming. That number isn't nearly enough. And Showtime boxing honcho Stefan Espinoza knows it. With consistently poor viewership numbers, Showtime executives won't renew PBC's contract at the end of 2024 when the contract expires. And it could very well be doomsday for Showtime boxing.
If the situation doesn't improve.
You can formulate your argument like Leonard did that, well, ESPN is a much bigger platform than Showtime, available in more homes. All that means is that you can't hope to compete.
That if you stage a card and they stage a card at the same time, they're gonna beat you. The higher-ups at Showtime might look at that and say, well, what do we need to be in boxing for? We can't compete with those guys.
At this point, we're just trying to keep our head above water and focus on what drums up metrics and subscriptions. And if that's not boxing, then that's not boxing.
Tell me that reruns of Seinfeld at that same time wouldn't have brought in more viewers than Romero versus Barroso. Tell me that reruns of
a biopic or a docu-series would have brought in far more viewers than Romero versus Barroso and would have retained some replay value.
Whereas the appeal of live sports is that they're happening live, in real time. But if it's happening in real time and it still doesn't get a lot of views,
you're in trouble. You're falling too far behind your competitor. So far behind, you're not in competition. They came in at number 4 that night. You came in at number 33.
If they're staging boxing matches and so are you, you're in competition for the same eyeballs, my friend.
ESPN being a bigger platform than Show just makes it harder for Show to compete. So it all means the same thing.
Fallacious arguments and the sophistry of Leonard Ellerbe won't change that.
Step it up, guys. Finally, in men's light heavyweight news per tweet from Michael Benson, WBC President Mauricio Suleiman has reiterated that the WBC still have a ban on Russian fighters and so would not sanction Dmitry Bivol versus Canelo Alvarez 2 for their super middleweight world title now. Bivol would have to go through WBC's process for exemption.
I'm not surprised.
I said this would happen. As soon as the WBC took a hardline stance when it came to Bivol versus Better Bev, I knew that would trickle down to Bivol versus Canelo too. They won't let him hold any version of their title at light heavyweight or super middleweight. They're saying that he has to petition for an exemption.
Are they trying to dissuade him?
When Dmitry Bivol spoke to Steve Kim a couple of weeks ago, he made it clear he wants more belts, whether they are belts at light heavyweight or belts at super middleweight. Is this the WBC's way of dissuading Dmitry from pursuing a Canelo Alvarez rematch? He'd still get other belts if he fought Canelo, even without theirs.
Yeah.
There's still the WBA, the WBO, and the IBF at super middleweight.
I've long maintained that Mauricio Suleiman wants to treat the World Boxing Council as if it's more than just an alphabet organization, as if it's more than what it is.
You're not a politician, even if you fancy yourself one. What's going on in Russia and Ukraine, that ain't none of your concern.
Nope.
That ain't none of your business. The limits of your jurisdiction are limited to boxing and just boxing. And near as I can tell, this prejudicial stance is unnecessary and irrelevant to the war front.
The actual war. What do you think? Putin shaking his fist at the sky because you won't let Russian fighters fight for your belt?
Get over yourself, and you have to wonder if the World Boxing Council and Mauricio Suleiman will keep the same energy when it comes to another Russian fighter of Russian descent.
Sergey Kovalev.
Newly crowned WBC Bridgerweight champion Badu Jack just signed a Skills Challenge, and the people at Skills Challenge made it clear they're interested in staging a Badu Jack versus Sergey Kovalev fight. Sergey Kovalev, the former light heavyweight champion from Chelyabinsk, Russia. Are they going to treat Sergey the same way they're treating Dmitry?
By way of the World Boxing Council's ranked standings, the top guy is Noel Gavor, the guy most in line to fight Badu Jack for that WBC title. But next to nobody knows Germany's own Noel Gavor.
He's a good fighter, don't misunderstand me. A fight between Badu Jack and Noel Gavor is actually a good fight and a dangerous fight for Badu Jack, but it's not the better money fight. It's not the bigger fight. The bigger fight with more name value, more of that appeal, would be Badu Jack versus Sergey Kovalev.
Sergey's Russian.
So will the World Boxing Council and will Mauricio Suleiman keep the same energy for Sergey that they are exhibiting for his countryman, Dmitry?
What are they going to do? They're going to stop that fight from happening? They're going to make him jump through hoops the same way they want Dmitry to jump through hoops?
It's pointless, really. It's a pointless formality. It seems they are still affording Dmitry the opportunity to position for an exemption to compete as a non-Russian fighter. Essentially, they want him to disavow his Russian heritage.
Just say you're from California.
I think he's based out of there, making this an even bigger redundancy. Dmitry's a boxer, not a soldier.
I don't know what the WBC hopes to accomplish with all of this.
You like Ukraine's politics more than Russia's? Hang a Ukrainian flag outside your house. Keep it out of boxing.
I'm not saying that I'm in favor of or against either party in that ongoing crisis over there, but that's the point.
We are not here to debate contrasting ideologies, who's right and who's wrong. We're here for boxing matches. The boxers themselves are here to box.
This is a slippery slope.
And boxing's got enough problems without involving geopolitics. It's convoluted enough, fragmented enough.
You're banning Russian fighters for invading the Ukraine. Does that also apply to America and what countries they've invaded over the years?
This is just not a good look.